This video will take us through a construction detail, which is a series of drawings on a detail of the landscape plans that we're working with. First, we do a circle 8-inch radius, that's a 16-inch diameter, then a 6-inch square, or using rectangle, of course, and making that into a group. It has a line across it. You'll see why in a minute or two. The circle and the outline are also being made into a group. And now we want to move the square part over top of the circle part. This is the post over top of the footing. Moving into 3D, going inside the group of the circle using push-pull to move it downwards 30 inches. That's 2.5 feet into the soil. And then inside the post group, taking out the diagonal line, we don't need it anymore. It was just to get the center or the midpoint of the diagonal line in the center of the circle and push-pull up 6 feet. This part is a bevel on the top of the footing. It's 1 inch high, and it's just a triangle that we use follow me. Click on the face, click on the line we want it to follow, see how it catches that, makes it red, and now we have a slope on the top of the footing to shed water. Since every type of fence will be different, this is just an idea of how you might go about it. At the top of the post, we're going to push-pull with the plus sign, so we're adding some inches onto it, and we're going to make that a narrow piece by using push-pull, pushing it back 1 inch. So from the 6x6 we're now down to 4x4. We can erase those extra lines. They don't need to be there. Just makes it easier for us down the road when we want to do things. On the top, we want to have another piece. These are also called finials. This is usually a part that you can buy and add. We're building it here. Just offsetting the very top plane 1 inch to give us some width outside of the that centerpiece, pulling it down 1 inch. Next part will be just to draw some corner lines because we want to have a slope on a part of that. So once we do that, you see there's still highlighting of that exterior line. I'm going to move that line down on the blue axis 1/2 inch. And so we have a post cap completed. We're going to move that down. So with a window, I'll capture those parts and just move it down so it's a little more squat on top of the fence post. With tape, we'll just move a line down on the outside of the post group. I want to do the same and copy it down, but it didn't work this way. It's given me a guide point the second time. Nonetheless, I'm still going to draw a 2x6 rectangle. I'm going to use line for that. It seems to be jumping to the 2-inch lengths. That's fine. Made it into a group. Now I'm going to go and using edit erase guides is the easiest way to get rid of the guides. Going inside the group of the 2x6 stringer, it's called, I'm going to push-pull it 7.5 feet in length. That creates the top of my fence panel. I'm copying it, moving it down towards the bottom. I haven't put any dimensions on that part of it yet. It could have dimensions, but that has not been done. Now creating a 1 inch by 6 inch rectangle for the vertical boards. That's flat on the bottom stringer. I'm going to right now make it into a group. And then I'm going to move it and center it on the post. So it's centered on the 2x6, and then move it away from the post a little bit so there's a bit of a space there. This will be the beginnings of our fence panel of 1x6s vertically. I shot it up a little bit too high there. I have to bring it back down to the bottom of the upper stringer. So now I'm going to copy that vertical fence board. I call it an upright. It's a 1x6. I'm moving it over 10 inches on center, but that leaves a 4-inch space. That's probably the maximum you could have. Usually would make that 3 3/4 inches, something like that. But they're spaced out, 7 of them, for the length of the 8-foot fence. It's 8 feet center to center, so copying the post and footing, so they are exactly 8 feet apart in this case. Now I'm going to select the parts on the left, one post, one footing, all the stringers and all the uprights. I'm going to make them a component. Fence 1, I'm going to set the axes. So I'm going to the middle of the footing, click. I'm going to follow red on red, and then green on green. And I have my axes set. I'm going to say create. Now I'm looking at the standard views, which is camera standard views. So there's front, side, back, other side, and just checking to see that everything is working properly. I'm going to create scenes now for each of the views that I want to have. So I have one scene face on, I have one scene from the end, and I'm going to create an oblique view as well with parallel projection on, which means that I can put dimensions on it, and the dimensions can actually be measured if I have that to scale in my layout file. So now making layers, I'm going to add text to these views. So for the angle view, the end view, and the face view, they're all going to have text, and each one has a separate layer just for the text. The model stays on whatever layers I might want to put to them. They're all on layer 0 right now. I've saved the file, and now I'm adding another stringer, but it will be a rotated stringer on its edge, a 2x6 on its edge, and that is for structural integrity as well as for looks, the looks of the fence itself. Right now everything flows through. I'm going to move that out of the way, and then I'm going to bring that back right in line with the face of all those vertical uprights using the red axis, lock myself on the red axis, and that edge line touches the face. They're all lined up that way. I think I'll move it up a little bit just so it's above the center line, probably 60-40 kind of thing, 60 below, 40 above. You'll notice as I change from scene tab to scene tab, there's a slow transition. The model rotates slowly. I'm adjusting the view animation settings to 0 transition time and 0 delay. So now when I click on the scene tab, it goes directly there, just like a slideshow. So on to dimensions. We'll use the dimension tool here. We'll go from the center of the post to the center of the post. It is exactly 8 feet. So click on one end, click on the other end, move it so you can put your dimension line at an appropriate place, and then click again. This one is a little bit off because I'm using the top of the bevel. I want to use the edge, and I'll line it up by eye with the other guys here. 2'6" is 30 inches. Now I'm adding labels. So with the label tool, I'm able to go up and click, start my arrow, click a spot where the text starts, type the steps, type the text in. Here I'm going in to zoom in close to get the center of that 2x4 stringer, and then up to the face tab. So I'm using the scene tab, face in this case, so always come back to the same place so I can see where my text is going to be. You'll see why in a little bit. So I've clicked the location for the arrow, dragged it out, put the text in. I'll do the next one, which is actually going to be an arrow without text, a leader arrow for the next stringer. I'll line it up with this one, no text, so when it says text I just type a space bar, which is a null response. I'm going to zoom into that one so I can see it a little bit better. I'll go up, hit the scene, come back down, line it up, click the space bar, and then I click on the screen one more time and I can move onward from that. Here I'm just clicking on the finial. I call it a fence cap here. It could be a post cap, whatever seems to work. Now I'm adding note information, text underneath the drawing. You'll find that the text that has no leader line is fastened to the screen, while the text with the leader line is fastened to the object. See that? Next, we'll be adding a ground plane. I'm just drawing a rectangle, and it tends to want to automatically go with the ground plane. I will add a note here that says that's the ground level for this piece of fence. If you remember, it works at just the bottom edge of the bevel at that elevation. Now, since I've moved things around on the screen, my text was in the way. I'm updating the scene, and so my view is going to include the text at the bottom and all those other things. Next step is for me to add or to assign a layer to all of the text. So I'll assign the layer face text, and I can turn that on and off with my scenes. So moving now to the end scene, I'm going to turn off fence face text and then update my end scene because I don't want that text that belonged to the other view, the other viewpoint, the other scene. I want that not on here. I'm just changing the ground plane so it looks a little bit better in this scene. It won't make a difference down the road. Adding dimensions now, and as before, looking for the points on the model that I can add those dimension lines to. And then I'm going to add some notes, actually labels. Label has an arrow, so let's click the arrow, click the beginning of the text, change the spelling and the typing so you've got it correct. And I will assign all this text now and dimensions to the layer end text, and I will have to adjust my scenes later on. You see now I've got end text on my angle scene, so I have to go in and update my angle scene again by turning off the end text and turning off the face text layers and saving the scene. I'm going to change the ground plane extents again. I wasn't happy with them at all. Just keeping it on the red or green axis there. As I move the end piece out, stickiness allows me to drag it a bit. And another quick step, because I do want to see my footings, I'm going to use glass and mirrors and make that translucent. So I've added that to my ground plane face. For the dimensions in the angle scene, I'm going to use that top corner there, and I'll use the equivalent top corner of the other post. I'll mark it, raise it up there. It says 8 feet, so it shows the post distances on center, shows the post height above ground. In this case, it doesn't quite exactly match, so it says not 6 feet, so I'll double click on the text, type in 6 feet, and I can change my dimension text in case it's off a bit, and that happens. Next, I want to add some labels as well. So I'm going to make a note here to say leaving a 4-inch space under the bottom stringer. Make the spelling errors corrected. And note the 1-inch beveled sloped bevel on top of the footing. So there's 2 notes there on this particular view. The text at the top needs to be changed to say exactly 8 feet on center. O/C means on center. Moving on to assign a layer to the text items on this scene. So a little trouble selecting that text, I keep getting the ground plane background. So I'll use a crossing window from right to left and then get rid of the deselect the ground plane. Worked fine. It's going to be on angle text layer. So now when I move from one scene to the next, I will be able to have, once I set up my layers and update my scenes, I will have just the text I want for each of those scenes. This whole demonstration is done in SketchUp. Exactly the same text items could be added to model images in layout using the text functions there. Dimensions can also be added by adjusting the dimension automatically to match the model image when it comes in from SketchUp. This is a different way of doing things. Text does not work when you orbit. It must be done only in one view. And the scenes that we've made now here can be used just like they are for our construction detail in layout.